Hello, everybody, and welcome to Baka. We are an anime podcast where every 2 weeks we come together and discuss an anime like we are a book club, and then we turn our discussion over to you. And this is one of 4 special episodes that we do starting around the holiday time and going into the new year. First, we watch a movie. We already did that. That was our last episode. And then the co-hosts pick a retro rules-free anime, something that they always wish we had taken the time to discuss, and so we watched those 2 anime. And now, for the first time ever, we're having an audience choice anime, which will be coming up in the next 2 episodes, and we'll discuss more of that later when we're announcing the next episode. But let's get to our co-host before we talk about Samurai Champloo. First off, we have the cowboy to my bebop. It's Jeremy with his hot take. So hot, you're going to need some Tums. Hit him, Jeremy. Hit him with the hot take.
I hate you already, Troy.
I don't think we have enough 3D animation in the anime. I don't know why we're doing it, but we're getting away from the 3D animation. And I think it really contributed something that, I feel the loss.
Do you mean CGI 3D?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like Ajin or...
Yeah, like Ajin and Land of the Lustrous and,
Hey, Beastars Season 3, they're working on it, man. I'm ready.
Oh, yeah? Well, there we go.
And then we also have... He's a dandy guy in space. It's Jason.
I love it. You knew that was coming.
Goblin Slayer Season 2 is mid.
Ooh.
Hot takes.
Now, is that like, if we were to look at it on my anime list, would it be a 6?
It's probably rated higher just because of the following it has, but I would rate it like a 5.56. It's okay.
All right. And my name is Troy, and my hot take, I'm going the Jeremy route, going for more bigger general topics, which isn't really helpful for what we do this for, but screw it. I think the term anime being focused only on Japanese animation is a disservice to both our medium and everything. I think it's definitely a style, a vibe, but I don't think it should matter where it comes from. I don't care if it's Avatar. I don't care if it's Blue-Eyed Samurai. It's anime if it has the anime vibe to me. I don't care what country it came from, even though Japan does it the best and they're the OG. I think it's okay to let it branch out and let anime mean more and expand all of our horizons.
Do I hear an egg cooking? That was hot.
No, actually, I do have an egg cooking. Sorry.
Oh, okay, my bad.
It's dinner time over there, and we have breakfast for dinner. So now I know that there's like Korean anime. So I wonder if it's just like Asian animation is considered anime. And like if you're Western, it's not anime.
This is a topic that people debate about, but there are a lot of purists who are like, anime has to come from Japan. Because, I mean, the original term was Japanimation, and they got shortened to anime.
Yeah.
I'm just saying now we should widen that.
Yeah. Just if it's a cartoon, it can be anime.
I think there's a specific style. That,
right, yeah, I think that's got to
I think,
like,
like, for instance, if the Samurai Champloo was developed and made in the U.S., but had all the hallmarks of coming from Japan, I think I would still call it anime.
Arcane's a good one. Everyone loved, the series Arcane. It was widely loved. It definitely took a lot of inspiration from Japanese anime. It brought that vibe into itself. I have no problem considering it an anime.
I would.
Okay, well, you know what? This isn't a mini-sode. We're moving on.
These are supposed to be quick hot takes.
Hot takes! All right, we are here to discuss Samurai Champloo. This is, again, the first of the retro rules-free picks that we do. It was Jason's pick. I'm going to let him give his non-spoiler review to let you know if you haven't seen it, this really old anime, if you should at this point. Jason, what did you think of Samurai Champloo?
To answer that question right now, I think yes. This really stands the test of time as far as like something interesting to watch that will make you laugh and also is engaging. I'm also finding through this experience that, and also through all of our other animes, I really seem to enjoy non-linear storytelling. Like, it's just like episode per episode has different topics. I'm not sure. Like, I say I don't particularly like that, but I seem to enjoy anime that ends up happening that way. So, I have some soul searching to do.
You like episodic anime, you really do.
Right. I have a nostalgia bias when it comes to this anime, so it's hard for me to be fair in some of my criticisms because there is some age to it. However, I do think it's definitely worth watching today, and it's a fun romp through the Edo period and through Edo itself. And it would be nice to see this. I'll probably continue watching the second half after this because I was enjoying myself. But yeah, you should give it a watch.
All right, Jeremy, what are your thoughts on it?
It's better than I thought. I have kind of the opposite nostalgia that Jason has for some reason, and I'm not entirely clear on what it is. I have my suspicions. I don't have fond memories of this one. I think it's the music. I just really didn't like the music, and I'm still not fond of the music. But as far as like the 90s animation and everything, I really like that part of it. It feels really comfortable to me, very familiar. And there's also just the simplicity of it, of the animation, like even just the combat. If you look at the sword swings and stuff, after watching a lot of the more recent ones like Jujutsu Kaisen and I always call it Dragon Slayer, but Demon Slayer and some of the others, like, well, their combat is beautiful and there is a lot to observe. The simplicity of the combat of at least this one from the 90s, it was also really nice in its own way. For me, a lot of the humor landed pretty well, and I like the characters. So, yeah, I guess the music is just such a big turnoff for me that it slants it a lot. But
all three main characters are such jerks.
They really are. But each in their own way. Like, and the fire and ice combo that you have going between Mugen and Jin is really cool. Just that personality wise, plays well on the characters. So I don't know. I think it's probably, I would recommend it because I think most people would have a different taste than I do in this regard. They would probably like it more than I do.
Jeremy, you don't like the hip hop anonymous?
I don't. I don't like the wiki 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 wiki. I really don't like that.
So I have a lot of early thoughts here. I probably have more to say in this section, the non-spoiler section, than once we start getting into it. This is our third time watching a Shinichiro Watanabe directed anime. He did Cowboy Bebop, and then he did Space Dandy, and he made this in between those two. Of the three, this is my least favorite, but it's still really good. It's well made. The guy is clearly a master of his craft. There are some tropes specific to him that I'm starting to see overused. Like, hey, we're starving and we're poor, and that's going to drive an entire storyline a lot. Which, yeah, that's just it's like doves in a John Woo film. It's just part of it, right? I like the exploration of hip hop. I enjoy hip hop just fine. I don't know much about its history, whereas like where Cowboy Bebop was trying to do jazz like storytelling, this is trying to do hip hop like storytelling, and I don't connect with it as well because I don't understand it as much. But it was still fun to watch that exploration. These characters aren't to me as good as other characters he's made. Again, this is just. It's just a third place of his series, but I still think it's worth watching, especially if you are a fan of his other work. It is very cool visually. It's just a vibe, man. This whole series is just a vibe for however long you go on the journey with it. All right. What do you guys think of the opening and the closing? Jeremy, we already know your thoughts. You can just step out of this one.
Exactly. Yes.
I had forgotten the opening to this quite a while ago, and when it first came on, all these feelings and like memories started flooding back, and I was just again that nostalgia bias just hit hard, and trying to just kind of pull those feelings back and listen to it objectively. I love the opening song. And also the visuals are cool. It's just got this like style. It's very stylized, and usually stylization that I don't like normally. But something about like what Jeremy was saying about the fire and ice, you've got this moment where you've got Mugen and Jean kind of it's this close up, but they're running and swinging swords. It's got this feel that it's hard to describe of other anime openings. Yeah, it's a piece in time is probably the best way to put it. But and the ending is a bunch of pictures. But I ended up watching this OP like probably 6 times before I started skipping it.
You can talk, Jeremy. It's fine.
I forced myself to watch it once on the episode 1 and once at the last episode of the OP, and the rest I skipped as fast as I could. I just could not. No, And the outro, she's got a nice voice. I just don't like the style of singing. It was so weird. It like verged on jazz almost. It just really weird. Not a fan of either one.
Some days, some nights.
The opening, I did not forget it. That thing is burned into my brain for as long as I live. That's probably what I remembered more about this anime than anything else. Some of Mugen's fighting style, stuff like that. But yeah, that opening, and it was never skipped in my house. That's heresy. That's like skipping Tank when you watch Cowboy Bebop. You don't skip Tank.
What's Tank?
That was the opening.
Oh, that's their opening?
Yeah.
They have a name for their... Oh, okay. Pretentious.
Sorry, no. Sorry, that's an inside joke at my house. So, we play a game where I have an anime playlist, and then we'll play. And then whenever a song comes on, we have to name the anime. But for some reason, my daughter, whenever Cowboy Bebop's opening theme song starts playing, she just yells out the song title, which is actually Tank. So
okay.
For some reason, I know that song compared to everything else I listen to. I can tell you the anime, but for some reason, Cowboy Bebop is Tank. I know Tank. So that's a personal thing. It's not like they're all we're Tank. We're much better than other openings.
That's what I thought. I thought it was. Yes, exactly.
Even though they should, because Tank is that good.
It's that good. I remember when you were talking about it in our episode. If anybody's wondering, you should go back and listen to that episode. Troy had a really good explanation for why that OP is good.
Yeah,
I don't agree with it.
It's layered. This is probably layered too. I didn't look into it. But yeah, I do. So I really like the OP. The ending, I spend a lot of time, trying to figure out, okay, what does it affect the story? Or how is there anything in these memories? It's clearly we're watching memories. Is there anything I need to pick out of this? Watch this on Hulu, and Hulu wants to skip it every time. And after a couple tries, I just started letting it. So, nothing about the song grabbed me in that one. So opening, yay! Closing, eh.
I watched it on Crunchyroll.
Yeah, me too.
Which doesn't Hulu, even with a subscription, have like commercials now?
Yes, sir. But you know what? There's a Hulu app on my television, and I don't have to go turn on the computer and like type in what I want to watch. It's just a click, 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 and it's so,
Yeah, that Crunchyroll app on my phone, that's rough to get into.
Yes. Yep. I don't want to watch TV on my phone.
I don't know how you watch it on your phone. I would have such a hard time. But then that's because I like to read the subtitles, so that's probably the hardest part of it. Yeah.
Some anime I'll watch on my iPad. That's better for me, but yeah, I don't watch anything on my phone. I'm too old. Too old for these stuff. All right. before we go to spoiler section, we have some business to take care of. But first, let's let you know the next anime. This is Jeremy's pick. Serial Experiments Lain. Lain.
No, it's Lain.
It's Lain. How does it? Okay, what I know is it's a psychological anime. It's rated R, so get ready for weird stuff. And while I've heard it 100 times, it was always while I was in a Hot Topic store. So that's all I know about it. But it is one of those like classic anime that people who have seen it have like, oh, have you seen it? This is deep. So I think that's kind of similar to you, Jeremy, where you've always heard of it, don't know much about it, and it's like, okay, let's take the plunge together. I'm a little scared. I'm gonna be honest. I'm a little scared of what's coming.
Yeah, I'm a little scared but excited at the same time. Like, please, can this be as good as something like Psycho-Pass, or what's that one where, like, I don't remember the name, so I'm not gonna be able to describe it.
Oh, Sunny
Never
Boy.
mind. No, it won't be like Sunny Boy. No. But there was one where like the kid goes back in time. Yeah, I think that's the one. The kid goes back in time and the girl's on the bus and all that.
No, there's no time travel. Agent. Have you ever seen Paranoid Agent? It's freaky.
Maybe.
It's about a kid.
If we haven't watched it, I probably haven't.
Okay. About a kid in rollerblades who just shows up and kills people with a bat. And every episode's like another person.
He's wearing a mask?
No?
Or no, he's always got his cap on, his head's down.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've never seen it, but I know it. I know of it.
That anime scared the crap out of my wife. That she's like, I can handle monsters, zombies, whatever. You tell me a guy can just get to me no matter what I do and assault me. That's terrifying. Okay,
that's fair.
It's a very scary anime. Yeah. All right. So Serial Experiments Lain. The other thing is to let you know that as of now, voting has started for the audience pick episode. So all of your submissions have gotten in. Hopefully you've followed us on Twitter, so you knew to do that. You have to now go to our website, theanimebakaclub.com, and there is a voting page there that I'm sure it's very easy to find.
There will be a link. There is a link in the menu. Look, it will be it is very obvious.
Very obvious. And there will be a pinned tweet on our X Twitter account that you can also get to the website from there and get straight to the voting there. We need your votes. Otherwise, my daughter's going to pick what we watch. Come on, guys. We need you.
Help.
Has season 2 come out of what is that one we watch? Is Licorice? That'll be what we watch.
No. That was season 2. But did you? Okay, I send these guys every once in a while just the top 10 anime according to some random vote, and I don't like look for it. It's just whenever I see it, I send it to them. Hey, here you guys go. Guys, the Dark of My Heart. What was that anime we watched?
Dangers of My Heart.
The Dangers of My Heart was season 2 is the number 1 anime of the season according to this poll. Over like all these famous ones right now, Apothecary Diaries and Freerin. I don't know how. I don't know what's happening. Studio Trigger has a brand new anime on Netflix, and it's number 10. But Dangers of My Heart, people are into it.
Who is voting? Who is voting?
Jason.
Jason.
How dare you?
You picked it. You have to take credit.
Yeah. Are you spamming the votes? Jason's got his hacking scripts going.
That's right. I'm constantly spinning up virtual machines in my AWS.
That's right. And you're doing it in VR so that everything is in a circle around you.
Right.
We are moving on to the anime. Spoiler section. We will be despoiling Samurai Champloo, which is like 20-something years old at this point. So
we will be despoiling.
Oh, it's so funny. Every time someone goes, the 90s was like 20 years ago. I'm like, oh, really? I thought it was like 5 years ago.
It's going to be 30 years ago real soon. Like,
yeah.
I think if it is 1990, it is. Like halfway through it is. Ugh.
We've dropped the spoiler warning. Spoilers are coming. Here we go. We are back in the Edo period of Japan. And we start
the opening scene is in modern Japan.
I do like how it fades to Edo.
And then it remixes back to Edo.
That's right.
Wicca, wicca. And no missiles go flying. Another episode where I can torture someone with Wicca Wicca, but it's not Jason this time, it's Jeremy.
Yeah, no.
All right, so we see our two main characters are about to get executed. Two of our three. The first off, the main man, Mugen, the wild brawler, wild guy. I know I said wild twice. He's that wild. Your guys' thoughts on Mugen?
He's just this, like you said, raw, feral, like I live for myself kind of individual. But underneath, he does seem to have like at least a baseline level of principles. Or he wouldn't be in this group. But I really like this character because as for simple as his character seems to be, there's definitely some depth there. And his fighting style, we immediately get to see that the other samurai in the area like just have no idea how to A, combat him, but B, like they've never seen just this wild fighting style. And yeah, and also like all the interactions with him are hilarious. I love watching the world react to him. But because that's really how, like, he's just this presence that, like, everyone has to get out of his way, not the other way around.
Yep. And him react to the world is also really good. Like, I don't know how many times you get a scene where it's just him, like, breaking free from people, and his body is, like, tweaked in these hyper action poses where he's, like, limbs bending and everything, and everybody's just kind of like, whoa! His fighting style reminds me a bit of Jujutsu Kaisen's Yuta. Just because he does a lot of like breakdance fighting, and Yuta has very similar like upside down kicking moves, right? And so I watched a lot of Jujutsu Kaisen. I watched all of Jujutsu Kaisen.
Do you mean
Zero,
Yuji?
so it's on my mind. Yeah, I do mean Yuji. Thank you.
Yuta's from the movie, and he was a little more sword slashy.
Yeah, he's the boring one. Yuji.
Wait, pause. Sorry, I gotta go off a rail. Now that you've seen, so we just did the movie, and you hadn't seen anything. Now you've seen everything. No. Any new thoughts on the movie? Anything change?
Yeah, actually, I still think Yuta is not a great character. But you asked about change. Let's see. It was really good. The fighting was really good. It pulled me in. It wasn't as good as I was expecting, but that's probably because you guys were really enjoying it, and so my expectations.
I don't mean season 2. I mean about the movie. Like, probably the biggest one I want to know about is you're like Geto seems very one-dimensional, and you know.
Oh yeah.
And now you've gotten his backstory and got to see why he got there. Did that change anything of your opinion? In like 10 seconds or less, we got to get back to the movie.
Yeah. It gave him justification. I will definitely give it that. Yeah. If you watch that part, like the first arc, and then you watch him, I do think, it's absolutely necessary. I think for you to get any sense of who Geto is, that he's not just a mustache twirler.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. More thoughts on Mugen. Back to Samurai Champloo. Wicca, back.
No.
Okay. Yes, that's amazing.
So yeah, Mugen is fire. He is just energy. I love it how repeatedly Fu will say and others will say that he doesn't know when to stop. Of course, Jin kind of gets a similar statement, but not as much. Mugen's wild. He's crazy, and he's jaded. He's got a chip on his shoulder. He's got problems. Okay, both of them have problems, him and Jin, right? But he wears his problems on his sleeve. Like, it's obvious that he has these problems, and he doesn't try to hide it. He's ready to pick a fight anytime with anyone. And I think really he's most interesting when compared to Jin, because there's a lot of similarities between them, but their distinction is what makes them different from each other. Their dichotomy is what makes them so interesting. Yeah. So I really like Mugen. He's a great character.
Agree with everything they've said so far. Want to call out the metal slats on his shoes so that he can block swords with his shoes, and I love it every time he does it. But my biggest thoughts was, watching this, the core of it is hip hop, right? That's what they went for. Whereas like Cowboy Bebop, the core of it was jazz. But yet when I see Mugen, especially Mugen, even more than Jin, I get punk. And maybe that's just because I'm more familiar with the punk movement, the British punk and all that stuff. I get that, no one's going to hold me down. I'm going to live my life. I'm going to be what I want, do what I want. But now I'm, not knowing much about the hip hop movement. I'm spending a lot of time watching this thinking, are those two movements very closely related in what they were wanting to do and trying to say? I just don't know, like I said, enough about it to have a thought. But I got punk off of Mugen. But the answer is he's hip hop.
Is Jin also hip hop?
Well, I would say the whole thing is in the fact that they're both. I mean, we can start with Jin. He's the next guy, but Jin, like you said, they have a lot of similarities, and the big one is they both want to live their life their way. No one's telling them what they can be and what they have to do. They're both independent to a fault, and they will kill anyone who stops them from that. So I would say yes, but whereas Mugen has that super expressive attitude that I associate with punk of like, I'm going to put my rebellion in your face. Whereas Jin's like, I'm going to keep my rebellion, and if you get in my face, now you're going to feel the rebellion. Your guys' thoughts on Jin?
I really liked Gene this time around because, so I liked him when I was more than Mugen when I first saw it, but I think my opinions kind of switched. But Gene he's the straight man of the group, and he brings this sense of levity and responsibility to some of the situations that they go into, which can end up leading to not only hijinks but also hilarious situations. But like his drive to do quote unquote what's right can really railroad their current mission or travels. So he's a great straight man for the group, I think.
Yeah. And even though Mugen is my favorite character, I still really like what Jin brings to the table. He's one of the funniest scenes for me with him was it actually came from a long-term joke where he's sitting in a prison cell with Fu, and like she just keeps talking to him and he never responds. He's just, well, I mean, he responds, but he never responds with anything of consequence. Exactly. That's all he ever says. It's just, and you don't know whether it's disagreement or agreement or what. And it's just a one-time joke, you think, but then later in another episode that's referred to, and she actually gives her opinion on how it was so rude of him to do that, and and it made the joke land even better. Like Jin, the differences between Jin and Mugen were well known and well used by the author, and it very skillful. Just the execution of it to still make the jokes land really well with these very, I don't know. I again, even though I sound probably like a broken record, I think of them as fire and ice, and I think it's hard to get both to be equally funny, but they did.
Gene would appreciate that. Come on, guys.
So how does that make you feel?
No.
No, he's a great character. He plays a great straight man, but then there's moments of like where he kind of bursts out of his shell there's a scene that, so I should say we only watched the first 14 episodes because we can only handle so much we're not going to watch the rest of it. And there's an scene past where we watched where they're fishing, and he gives this samurai way like, oh, they gotta fish, you gotta fight for your life and fishing, and he doesn't catch anything, and Mugen and Fu are like sit there chomping fish, but he won't give up, and they're laughing at him, and so he ends up diving into the river to try to grab him with his hands because he gets so frustrated. He has like this boil over moment. There's a scene here where he cross dresses to sneak into a brothel, and then has to play a guitar, like a sitar type thing. Yeah. He doesn't know how, but he goes with the bit the whole time anyway. It's when he catches you off guard because he does seem like such a straight man, but there is a very funny, very wild character that he's carefully hidden under a cultivation of samurai honor. And when that real him emerges, he's fantastic. But it's rare. And so he's nowhere near as entertaining as Mugen, who's got to spout off at everything and everyone and start a fight with anything that has a sword. All right. And then we get a little more remixing, and we jump even farther back, which is to a young girl, a 15-year-old girl who is waiting on customers in a shop. And this is the third main character, who is Fu, the main character that will push them onto their quest. So your guys' thoughts on Fu?
She's so antitypical to normal tropey anime main female protagonists, and she just reminds me of there's this air about her of like a sitcom in one character, because like every situation she comes across, she almost sees it as if she's like looking at it from inside, even though she's got the knife to her throat. She's just like, oh, here we go again, I'm being captured. But I do like that even though she is a fairly helpless girl, she doesn't treat herself as such, and she's willing to, get her hands dirty if needed. But she also is, she seems to have a heart of gold, but she's also like willing to take advantage to get whatever she wants. So, yeah, I like this character. The dynamic of these three makes for some really great moments.
She's also got some crazy hidden skills, like the episode where she's the dice master, and like the way she throws the dice and they like ricochet off of beams and stuff, and then she catches them that's insane. And I know that was probably just entirely for laughs, but I mean, she did it. And at the same time, in another episode, a net is thrown, and her, Mugen, Jin, and another person are standing where the net's going to land. And she's the only one that doesn't make it out in time before the net lands. So her physical prowess is very contextual, based on what the author needs at the given moment. But I still find her to be really entertaining. She is funny, but I kind of wonder. She doesn't seem as important as the other two. Like she's very much the catalyst for many events, right? Like she's the MacGuffin, the one that gets, like you said, Jason, that gets captured, and her observations of it are interesting, but at the same time, she doesn't contribute a lot most of the time to her own rescue.
But let's be honest, I mean, the other two wouldn't be together without her, right?
That's true. They even tried not to. But yeah, I just didn't find her as compelling as the other two.
I think that she's the most main character of the main characters, but they are hiding it at this point in the story. I think the central theme lies in her past and what she's doing here on this mission. And it's a very slow build to get to that, because much like Cowboy Bebop and Space Dandy, the main characters are only not really the main characters. It's about the stories they encounter along their way. Every
So it's
episode,
about firing missiles into a black hole.
wicked,
Dandy missiles.
or stopping an underwear debate between an alien race. You know?
Yeah. Okay.
My point
Underwear
is,
take ups.
Watanabe's style is like, yeah, there is a central story. You know, Spike had, a woman that he loved that he talked about like once every 3 episodes, and you know, in Cowboy Bebop, she finally shows up near the end of the show, but that's not really what Cowboy Bebop was. Cowboy Bebop was here's these characters. They're hungry. They're poor. They encounter this super sad story or super weird story or super funny story, and here's that story, and then the characters move on to their next location and another story happens to them, with very little sprinkling of their own story happening. That even is more here. So I think as much as you can be, Fu is a main character. I just don't think we're anywhere near her payoff. So I'd say in this half I agree with you that she's a bit underutilized, underserved. But I do think I have faith, I'll say, with barely a memory of how this ends, that pays off.
I just wanted to say that what it sounds like to me from your description, and basically from thinking about what I have seen of Cowboy Bebop and Space Dandy, this author is very much interested in episodic anime. Like, you've got your through line, but the animes are all episodic, and progressively more so until you get to Space Dandy, where that's the entire core of Space Dandy. It's almost like exploring what being episodic means and what that would mean in a universe where you are episodic. And that's kind of interesting. But here, like you were saying before, if this is caught in the middle, it's less so. But still, I'm not a fan of episodic anime, so that's probably why I don't like it as much.
Yeah, I felt that during this. There's definitely a point where I'm like, oh, another tragic character who's about to have a tragic story. It was almost too much to binge. And I watched these 14 episodes over 2 weeks, but it was still like 2 episodes a day, every day, every weekday is basically how I watched this. And yeah, you know, the third day, 6th episode you watch, like, oh, yeah, that is sad that he also died.
Yeah.
And
I was also like measuring it against, is this an old anime that was like setting the standard, and so I can't be as critical of it? Because I do think that's a valid statement if that's the case. But the stories of the episodic nature were very tropey, like very predictable. Like when you'd see the characters at the beginning, you're like, oh, this is where they're going. And 75% of the time you were right. Sometimes more.
I would say where I found my appreciation for it was in the exploration of the period, even though they also abandon some period conventions. That actually brings me back to Fu. No one talks like they exist in the Edo period. They're talking like modern times of art when this was made. Fu is a manic pixie dream girl, but set in the Edo period, which I enjoyed. And, you know, and Mugen's like, I don't give a rat's crap about any of this stuff, and like, no one's saying that in Edo. And even at one point, Gene points it out. He's like, no one says anything like that. He's like, well, I say stuff like that.
Say uncle.
Yeah, so they're definitely playing with some conventions, but still a lot of the you know, the foreigners not being allowed in Edo, how women are being treated at this time, which kind of another thing I wanted to bring up about Fu. She's 15 years old, and so in the world she's in, she is very much a character that is in the, how do you say that nicely, is considered a sexual person. Or
she's a woman.
Right? Yeah, she can be sold to a brothel. It doesn't matter. I found the anime towed a nice line of not making us see her as a sexual creature while still showing that the world was very much treating her as such, but it wasn't drawing her a lot like sensual or curvy. There's the episode with the painting and stuff, but we don't actually see any
painter.
Yeah, but we don't see anything revealing until we actually see the painting, which
isn't accurate.
Right, right.
Because she's flat as a board, everybody makes comments about it, and the painting was not. So the painter made things up.
So I wanted to call because she says her age out loud early on, and I was like, oh, I remember there was some stuff in this, and so yes, the world it's very much like, hey, the world treats her as this, but the anime does its best not to, and I did appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, any other thoughts on Fu?
Not for me.
So this is, I felt, of all the episodes, this is the biggest hip-hop influences, where it's having like 3 different story tracks that it's jumping back and forth between. Yes, it uses the record scratch, but it's trying to do that in a narrative style as well. So we have one, which is Gene, who's walking along, and he's seeing a man trying to pay a debt to the governor, and the governor is like, ha ha ha, no, that's not even enough. Everybody, I want my guards to kill this guy. And Gene steps forward and kills these elite guards of the governor and then takes the money. Showing that, yeah, he's a good guy, but he's broke.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, Fu is in a story where the governor's son and his lackeys have come into her restaurant and harassing her. And this wild barbarian man, Mugen, comes in and he's like, hey, I'll deal with that if you pay me food. And she gets into a position where these jerks are going to cut off her fingers for spilling tea. And she says, I'll give you 100 dumplings. And Mugen's like, ha ha, your guys' life is only worth 100 dumplings. And then starts murdering. But the governor's son is like, my dad has these special elite guards. He's like, oh, yeah, go get them. I want to fight them. And then Gene walks in and he's like, I just killed them. And Mugen's like, well, then I'm fighting you. And that's the first time Mugen and Jin start fighting. I love their fights because Jin is orthodox to the T, like the best you can be in the orthodox. And Mugen has never seen a day of training in his life from a master and has made everything up on his own. And it frustrates Jin endlessly that he can't get Mugen, but same for Mugen. Like, he's doing all the normal stuff and none of my tricks are working. And then one of the guys that got his arm chopped off sets the building on fire. They end up, well, we see just Mugen wake up from a nightmare or a dream where they were on fire and they're captured and they're tortured. And so Fu decides she's going to break them out and then gets them to promise that they will help her find the samurai who smells of sunflowers. And it wasn't until episode 2 where they're like, what the hell's a sunflower? That I was like, oh yeah, that would make sense. In Japan, they probably don't get a lot of those. But yeah, so she goes off and gets fireworks. This is one of the things I remembered is I called them booby bombs.
Yeah,
she takes these
for good reason.
2 round firework balls and she shoves them in her shirt and runs up. Meanwhile, our samurai main characters manage to avoid execution by fighting back and start slaying the governor's men and the governor. And then Fu creates a distraction and they all run away. And then they do a coin flip to see if they're allowed to fight each other or they have to help her. And Mugen does the coin flip, which means he throws the coin so high that they have to wait a whole minute for it to come down. Lands on Fu's head. She wins the toss. They go off on their adventure together. A great character moment for Mugen, though, showing that restraint is not something he understands in the slightest.
No.
But it also, even though he is a wild animal that lives for himself, if he makes a promise, he's going to keep it.
At least in this episode.
Yeah. I spend a lot of time wondering like how much they actually care and how much they're like, I just don't have anything else to do.
That's fair. I mean, it is the Edo period.
Yeah.
Okay, so the guy who set the fire and had lost his arm in that cafe before, he goes and frees a prisoner called Oni Wakamaru, who's like a giant. Oh, they call him an ogre because he's got a messed up face and he's a giant man. And basically, this guy is looking to get revenge on Mugen. That's become his obsession. And then we come to our three main characters. I'm just gonna skip past this. In every episode, the three main characters are either hungry and or broke or both.
Yes.
And thus are needing to do something about that situation. This one, they buy some food, but a bird steals it, and then they tell Mugen's like, "Hey, locals, I hear you have an ogre. I'll kill it for you." Fu gets drunk, and then they wander over to a shack to stay the night in. But Mugen runs into a woman traveling on the road who invites him to her place, so he goes there instead. And Fu passes out, but then gets captured by the bad guys. And Jin takes a bath with a guy who was a cowardly samurai, too scared to fight the ogre. Who kind of hits on him a little
Yeah, he
bit.
totally does. I love that Jin's like,
She's like,
if you'll
and I'm out.
excuse me, yeah, I'm out of here. It was so funny.
But all of this is part of the bad guy's plan. The woman poisons Mugen with a kiss, and saying that the bad guy has the antidote, so he has to go fight him. Fu becomes friends with the giant ogre guy because she's nice to him. She has empathy. And the cowardly samurai is actually an assassin, and he starts fighting Jin in the forest. Mugen starts losing to the ogre guy, but when the bad guy threatens Fu, the ogre kills the bad guy instead, and then Mugen slays the ogre guy because, again, he doesn't hold back. He saw enemy. He doesn't understand anything but killing.
Yeah, it is interesting that in this moment, the two of them are about to clash, and Fu yells, "Stop!" And it's the ogre that drops his weapon.
Yeah, that's right.
Not Mugen. And yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then the assassin's like, well, looks like my employer is dead. No need to fight, but I'm sure we'll meet again. And he wanders off. One thing about these is it almost felt like I kept waiting for like one more scene at the end of every episode, and the anime was just like, no, it's over. Like a guy would die and he'd be like, I'm dying, and then the end, or to be continued, I guess is what it usually said. Did you guys get that? Like, did it feel abrupt at the endings of the episode?
A lot of episodes felt really abrupt.
Like they never sit and talk like, oh, you became friends with that ogre guy, or hey guys, did you see the assassin that just attacked me?
Yeah.
There's never any reflection or, group freeze frame jumps.
Yep. I think episode 1 had the only really good freeze frame, where it's like she's got the coin imprint on her forehead.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
All right. The next episode, Mugen and Jin ditch Fu. Guys, was this meant to be permanent, or were they aware she'd catch up to them? They were heading to the same town because they get to a crossroads and they're like, whisper, whisper, and then they just sprint.
Yeah.
There's an argument to be made for both, but I mean, they didn't go far once they got into town, so it didn't seem like they were consistently trying to get away from her.
But like you said, the argument would probably be that they couldn't afford to go far. Like they needed food, needed a place to stay, maybe. But yeah. This is where I think that they're bored and they really have nothing better to do than whatever's the most entertaining. And she seems to be entertaining. And also, I think they do kind of get a sense of, well, crud, if she's left by herself, she's gonna wind up, taken advantage of by somebody. She'll probably wind up in a brothel somewhere or something, like she does in this episode. And so I don't know, maybe they do get a sort of sense of responsibility toward her at that point, because they don't do this again.
True. Also, this is a 2-part episode, but Mugen goes back for her in this episode. Jean doesn't.
Yeah.
That's true.
And multiple times I noticed Mugen goes out of his way to find her or rescue her. Jean almost never does.
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay, so Mugen gets to arrest a diner, and there's some Yakuza men, and he picks a fight with them while stealing their food. But the Yakuza boss is like, sweet, this guy's awesome. I wanna become friends with him. So they go off, and he makes him his business partner. At the same time, we see a gambling hall, which is run by this Yakuza boss, and this old man who loses and now is in huge debt, has to deal with debt collectors. And they want his daughter for the brothel as payment. Gene, he comes to the same diner later, learns about the two different Yakuza that have taken up in this town. There's the honorable. We basically make the town run functionally. We're the good criminals. And then there's these new guys who run dirty gambling halls, are making things a lot worse. And they haven't fought for territory yet, but it's coming to a head soon, is the general impression. And these debt collectors are there, and the kid from the good Yakuza, which are called the Kawaru, he starts, hey, give the old man his debt token back. And Jin's like, hey, I'll work for you, kid. And scares these guys away. They get the thing back, but it doesn't help. The daughter is still sold into the brothel. Fu also gets conned into being kidnapped and put into the brothel.
Watch out for vases.
Watch out for vases. The kid and Jean go to rescue the old man's daughter. This is the scene where Jean dresses like a brothel girl, playing that instrument, and they're like, "Play us something," and he's like, "Twang, twang, twang."
I think that's such a smart decision to like not go, oh well, he's played this in the past and he's actually pretty good. No, he's just playing.
Yeah.
The part that sells it the best is his face. That like look on his face of, I am not selling this. And oh well, sword time.
Yep.
But
critical failure.
Yeah, since they're caught, Mugen jumps in, and our main characters are all reunited in this moment because Fu's like, "You freaking idiots! I've been captured. And you're all sitting right there." But Jean and the kid end up having to run away. Mugen tries to go after them, and then the Yakuza boss that he's working for is like, "Hey, don't fight anymore. I don't want you fighting. You've scared the men properly. Now they'll try harder. I just need you to be around to inspire." And Mugen's like, "That's dumb. I quit."
Yeah.
We should also point out that he had a little bit of a fight with the head bodyguard of this Nagatomi Yakuza boss, who was formerly of the other Yakuza and had switched sides, and has a really cool ball and chain move that they only use once, and I wanted to see more of that. The kid wants to help again. He ends up killing one of the Nagatomi Yakuza guys, and then the Nagatomi boss is like, "Oh, this is great." He's like, "Hey, yeah, you owe me. The kid killed one of my guys. We're not at war right now, so that's not allowed. You have to pay the price." So the two bosses agree to a gambling dice throw to decide their fate. One, either the kid will die or the kid will be spared, and then he gets to keep the territory of the other gang. So yeah, not good. And then Fu escapes, ends up becoming the dice thrower for the game. She ends up being great at it, but the Nagatomi clan ends up winning, the bad Yakuza. And so the other Yakuza boss kills himself. He's like, "Here's the debt payment," kills himself instead of his son. Mugen burst in. He's like, "Instead of waiting for you guys to hunt me down, I'm here to kick your butts," and just starts murdering Yakuza randomly. And the bad guy Yakuza boss runs out, and his bodyguard follows him and then kills him, saying, "You were a coward and I should have never joined you. This was a bad deal. You didn't have any honor." So the kid becomes the new Yakuza boss, and he tells the bodyguard, like, "Hey, you can come back. I'll all forgiving. He's like, I got to fight Mugen first. And then Mugen kills him. But Mugen warns him. He's like, if we do this, I don't hold back. And he's like, yeah, I understand. And then, one slash and he's dead. And that's, boom, end of story.
Yeah, no resolution. We don't have time for that. We got to move on.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Because we need to talk about Vincent Van Gogh. So this connects directly into Rusty Lake, right? Huh? One Rusty Lake fan out there? The Van Gogh went to Rusty Lake, Jason. There's a whole game about it.
Van Gogh?
Yeah. There's a whole one of the games. You're in Van Gogh's painting, and it's on Rusty Lake, and he was one of the.
That's why that picture looks so familiar with the bed.
Yeah. I don't remember a girl's naked boobie in it, but.
No, I do not either.
Anyway, this episode is about ukiyo-e paintings, which I don't know what those are.
I had to look it up because I was like, is this pervy paintings or is this something else? And it's something else. So basically, it's just wood lacquer paintings. That's it.
Oh,
they can be used for pervy paintings, sure, but they're also used for pretty much everything else.
Most of this episode is about Fu getting swindled again by Yakuza, but this artist is like, "Oh, I must paint you. You're so beautiful. You must be my model," and she trusts him. Meanwhile, Mugen is running around robbing Yakuza members every time he runs into them. He just mugs them. So. And Jean,
to the point where they're like fleeing from him constantly,
right.
Like watching over their shoulder.
And Jean is playing shogi with an old man outside of the painting shop. Well, the painting shop ends up being a Yakuza slave trade market. You actually you tap the picture of the girl you want to buy, and so the models actually are being abducted, which Fu is. But then the artist felt bad for her. He tries to get Mugen to help. Mugen does help. Oh, I forgot. Yeah, Mugen tried to save her in the last one too. He ran into the brothel. I was like, where the hell did she go? Mugen goes and rescues her, but he kind of like leaves her behind. Keeps going after the bad guys so he can keep beating them up. But we need to talk about. We don't really need to talk about Monzo the Saw shows up. He's a secret police officer who narrates this whole story, and this is honestly is where I was like, I'm getting some Space Dandy vibes off of this. I'm not getting Cowboy Bebop. I am getting because he's got this billy club that he uses as a shake weight while he's staking out in the front yard.
But they don't show it at first, and he's kind of watching some intimate people do intimate things.
Right, he's watching the modeling and then doing his shake weight. And
yes,
it's very awkward at first.
Yes. Well, the weirdest part is that he's going side to side with the shake weight, and so you're like, something's wrong too. Like it's weird.
So anyway, that's Monzo the Saw. But this is where I started that. Okay, so there's Cowboy Bebop, there's Space Dandy over here. I feel like this is gonna be right in the middle. This is gonna be the middleman between A and B, and it was, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. The end is Jin beats the guy in shogi, and he ends up being the actual Yakuza boss that was running the slave trade. So Monzo the Saw arrests him and then he pays Jin his winnings. Fu's painting gets taken to Europe, and the artist is like, I'm sneaking away to Europe, but he gets caught instantly, and the painting confiscated, and the painting goes to Europe, but he never did. He ended up. They acted like he became a famous artist in Japan too, so I don't know if that's a real person they're pretending.
Yeah,
he
like
is.
The father of these wood lacquer paintings. I didn't find his name. Mm-mm.
Okay. And they get money, so problem solved for this episode. Then they reach Edo, and they're broke, and they're hungry. So it didn't last very long. So they enter an all-you-can-eat contest. They use all their weapons for the entry fee, because surely they'll win. And Jin surrenders after a single bowl of food. Mugen gets his stomach super inflated, and then he surrenders. But Fu and this other character whose name is Joji end up setting the record, eating so much of this food. But Fu tries to squash a fly and accidentally makes the surrender symbol by putting her hands together, and she loses. So Joji gets all the entry fees, including their weapons. They're like, please give us back our weapons. And he is like, hello, I am very Japanese. I visit Edo first time. And he's clearly
show around.
Yeah, he's clearly a giant Dutch man.
Yeah.
And they're like, you're not Japanese. He's like, no, I totally am. Because it's illegal for foreigners to be in Japan at this part in history. And so he is sneaking around, and he says, yeah, you give me a tour of Edo, and I will give you your weapons back. And they're like, we don't know Edo. And Jin's like, done. So they give him a tour while the police are searching for this European that has invaded Japan. And then there's also this group of people with baskets on their head also moving around looking for this guy. They almost get arrested by the police at one point in the restaurant and end up fighting their way out of it. And then they go to a play, and Joji falls in love with the actress, but in this time in Japan, it's always an actor playing a female. And then he's like, I'm not disappointed. That's even better for me. I left my land because that wasn't allowed, and I heard in Japan it is, so I came here, and so this is great. And then the police show back up, and he gives everyone back their weapons, and they have a big brawl that ends up on stage. And then the basket guys all are from his country there to get him, and he is the head commander of the trading company approved by the shogun. He's a very important person, especially to the shogun at this time, because there's very limited trading with the West, with Japan. So this guy is a big deal. But they also make a really dated joke that Mugen makes here, and I laughed. Sure. Yep. It was still funny. And yeah, he is sent home, but he gives Fu some advice. So he's not heard of the samurai that smells the sunflowers, but he recognizes a little skull that she has on her blade. He's like, you have to keep that hidden, and you should go to Nagasaki because that's where that came from. So they're off on their next voyage. I mean, all these stories start kind of blending in together. I can go into details of each story, but they don't really matter. The next one is they win big at a gambling hall. They get food. They get pickpocketed. They spend the whole episode searching for the pickpocket. Fu finds out it's a young man who's buying medicine for his sick mom, and they end up in a hostage situation. But then the bad guys come in because he accidentally stole their opium. And when he finally gets away, the cops corner him and kill him. And Fu was very sad about that.
And apparently mom had a feeling that he was a bad kid, but he always made her, lied to her that, no, it's all on up and up.
Yep.
And I want to say, I like the episode. I enjoyed the storytelling. I really thought it was cool seeing a hostage situation in Japan, right? So there's no guns, but all the cops are outside anyway, and it just kind of had that modern and ancient feel at the same time. It was cool. It was a cool episode, but it doesn't matter to anything. I think the only lore drop is that Fu's mom died a year ago. We learn here.
Yeah.
But we do need to talk about things that do matter. So in the next episode, we see a samurai come out and declare himself in front of a crowd with his homies around him doing rap.
Oh yeah.
And a mirror shining on him, and he's there. He's there to kill Jean, the samurai with glasses, which means he's attacking every samurai he finds with glasses. There's like this little fat guy who's like, "I'm not Jean." He's like, "Battle." This is Shinpachi, and he's super important that I put him And we have to talk about his character. I can't imagine why. Jeremy, what does this remind you of?
I don't know. He's like Samurai Dandy or something.
He's like a dandy
Samurai
guy
Dandy.
in Edo.
in Edo. I love this guy. The only
I hate
thing
you
that I
both.
didn't the only thing I didn't like was the conclusion where they're like, "Oh no, you're a married dude, you got kids, and your wife happens to be the lady that was also hitting on them the same way, and you guys are gonna go off on a boat somewhere to do your shenanigans elsewhere." I was like, I really liked the silliness of the story as it was, where he's just this dorky guy who's like completely out of his league, and he's only still alive because he never happened to encounter the people he was looking for, or he was just really lucky, or someone else saved him at the last minute and he didn't know it.
Well, I love how he's attacking that castle wall, but it's a
Yeah.
destroyed castle because it's already been conquered by someone else. He's at the
Exactly.
wrong castle.
Yeah, the guy
Yeah.
goes, that's not that castle.
Yeah. And so I thought he was hysterical. I also really loved his little buddy that was following him around, and he was using the back end, the pommel of his sword, as a microphone and beatboxing into it the whole time. I was like, okay, in parody, I love this. This is fantastic. There's one scene where they're talking about. So it's outside. He gets a crush on Fu, and they're sitting out there, and his beatboxer is basically just kind of doing his own thing, and he's telling her about Jin because he wants to find Jin and kill him, and she realizes it's Jin, and so she's like, "Oh, that person," and she doesn't want to say his name, so she keeps saying that person, and the guy that's beatboxing goes, Jin? You know, he just keeps doing it every time she starts to say this person. So, and every time she gets more flustered because she's like, "Yeah, shut up, that guy, Jin." You know, it's so good.
You know,
So
it's a real shame you don't like hip hop. You do that well.
Thank you.
You're really
Right?
good at that.
absolutely loved this character and everything that came with him, except for that very last bit. Fantastic.
I think my favorite part of this episode is the woman gets Mugen and Jin to go off, right? And so here's Fu sitting at the table alone, and she's getting upset that not only did they leave her, but she's just rejected the guy that was hitting on her, but now she's feeling jealous. She's, well, fine, I have someone to go to too, and he's just, you can see like her instincts are like, do not contact this guy, but she's like, because of her jealousy, she's forcing herself to go find him. That was great.
Yep. I also love that when they have to go and do this little show where they're going to cut the pears in half that are on her head. One of those is the pear that like he gave her as a gift, and she's like, "Just cut the stinking thing in half." I hate the guy so much. Just use it as part of the show.
She does eat it because in her diary she said it was delicious.
Yeah, it's true. That's true.
Okay, so the real reason I wanted to bring him up, not only to point out that he very much feels like a prototype version of Space Dandy, where you know that the director's gonna be like, "That was funny to me. I want to take that concept and explore it." But the biggest thing was for Jason, because Shinpachi is not a main character. He's not carrying the show. So having him as a side character, if that made it more palatable, because I feel he's very similar to Space Dandy. If that affected with him being the side character.
A one and done, like this is, and also I actually appreciated the end but of the joke. Like
I did too. I like the ending.
it was like the basically a guy in his midlife crisis trying to go, I'm gonna be big, but in reality he needs to go home and take care of his kids. Like that kind of hit home a little bit. But I did appreciate the joke. So yeah, it wasn't too much. It wasn't also too outlandish either. And also he already is basically getting his comeuppance, right? For being, you know, the way he is. So, yeah, this was fine. I liked it.
I like the ending because I like the tie-in that, oh yeah, he's terrible, but his wife is terrible too. And you know, then he's bouncing his kid on his knee and talking about the next thing he's gonna do, and she's just like, "You're so dumb," but they work that way. She was flirting with men, he was flirting with a girl. At the end of the day, they're together taking care of their kids. That it worked for me. I thought it was funny. The lore bit that happens in this episode is when Jin goes back. They have to go back to the pawn shop to buy his glasses. This Shinpachi guy is there and is like, "Oh, that's the guy I've been looking for to fight." And his follower jumps forward and challenges Gene and is like, "I'm one of the students of the master you killed," because we had learned Gene killed his own master. And they have this fight, and Gene defeats him, but decides to spare him and says, "I did kill the master. I had to, but." And I'm just going to keep running. He's like, "We're going to get you. We're going to kill you." He's like, "That's fine, but I'm not looking to harm anyone. I don't want to do this. So you just tell them that." So we do get a little bit of look into Gene because, according to Shinpachi's backstory, he was a villain who murdered his master. And Fu spends the whole episode wondering, like, wait, not the Gene I know. He's so nice and gentle and kind, even though he never rescues me. Okay. This honestly was probably my favorite episode. It's the so we start with the guy who used to work in he's worked in a checkpoint his whole life, and he tells the story of 30 years ago when the checkpoint, which was always the strictest of checkpoints, was totally open for everyone to pass through for one day. And it starts with Mugen, Jin, and Fu, who bought bad travel passes. I love Mugen's like, "What the hell's a travel pass?" And Jin's like, "You have to have one. Do you have one?" "Well, no, but reasons."
I lost mine.
And also, I love how just easily swindled they are. Like, this guy completely sounds like a scammer, and they're like, "Problem to our solution."
Yeah.
So they buy scammed boarding passes and get arrested immediately at the checkpoint. And the guy there is so quick to execute everyone because he loves it that he forgets to check for bounties for criminals that come through, and he finds out, "Oh, we already killed this huge bounty, but if we have his head delivered, we'll get a huge payout." So he tells the three, "All right, I'm gonna send one of you to deliver this head, and if you get back here before sundown, I'll let you go through the checkpoint. Otherwise, I'm executing the two that remain behind." And he picks Mugen to go. And I love Fu, like, "You understand, you have to come back by sundown, right?" He's like, yeah, don't worry about it. No, like, you understand. Really cool animation in this one. You know, Mugen basically parkouring through the forest as he's chased by these, they're like warrior monks that live in the woods. But he ends up getting lost because, of course, he does, and wanders into it's a marijuana field, or is it an opium field?
No, it's marijuana.
It looks like marijuana, but it almost acts like opium.
Right. I was a little confused, but we just had opium like 2 episodes ago, so I was thinking that this had to be marijuana. Anyway, he's when he finds the field, he falls into a hole. These warrior priests abduct him. The guy who's telling the story, he's young, obviously, in this, and he had followed Mugen under orders, and tries to rescue him. And when they break out, they set a fire, and it starts burning the field. So Mugen starts fighting these warrior guys, but the smoke starts getting to him, and so they start having. It looks like Space Dandy. It looks like
it does.
Stars are blasting out. His bodies are stretching across space and time. Colors become pink and blue and everything under the sun. But my favorite bit through this whole thing, and this is really, I said episode 8 and episode 9 are Space Dandy pilots. You can't convince me differently. 8 had the character, 9 had the style. Because through this whole episode, everything that's happening to Mugen, it then cuts to Fu and Jean, and Fu going, "You don't think he fell into a hole and was captured by a bunch of bandits, do you?" Right after it happened, right? Like, it's so silly. She's guessing 100% accurate. And every time Jean just goes,
I love it. You don't, like, right as he, like, decides that I'm lost, and she's like, "You don't think he got lost, did you?"
Yeah, it's a running joke through the whole thing. And then they have this moment of the sun's going down. Will he show up? And they see a runner coming, they're like, oh, he shut up. But nope, it's just a
Jogger.
guy who's out jogging. He's like, oh, I'm just keeping in shape. I'm a jogger.
Is there a problem with that? Something wrong?
And then the checkpoint captain is like, execution. And they immediately crosses raise up into the air with them on crosses for execution. But the smoke from the burning field hits the checkpoint. So everyone gets drugged. And Fu and Jean are able to slip away. And after they do, they come across the field of Mugen and all these bandits just partying and hanging out. Oh, you guys are so cool. I love you guys. And that's the end of it. No resolution, no discussion, just Mugen in a field, hugging the guy we last saw having a death battle with.
Yeah. So the one thing I don't understand, everything else makes sense, even as crazy as it is. The one thing I don't understand is how Jin and Fu were not affected by the smoke, because everybody else lost their wits.
They probably were affected, but they maybe because they were above the smoke for a while, which doesn't make sense because smoke rises.
Right.
So no, there's no sense in
it. Nope.
Especially since Mugen is still clearly affected by it. So if they had been affected by it, they should still be under influence.
Yeah. But I did want to say that I've been noticing that there's a handful of instances where I remember being surprised by specific events in the episode. So I do want to make a caveat to my previous statement that there were a lot of things that were just really predictable. Yes, overarching themes, but individual storytelling beats, there were a lot of surprises. Like, take for instance the guy that was the second in command, basically, of that Yakuza team that Mugen killed. I did not see it coming that he was going to go face Mugen and then die right before the credits roll. Like, that no, that not in a million years. The kid being killed by the guards after the heist, right? Or not the heist, but after the hostage scenario. I did not see the kid dying until she jumped out the window to go follow. And then I was like, okay, is she going to see him get away, or is she going to, oh, they killed him. So there are a lot of like interesting decisions that are made. And also like with the from the previous episode, the dandy guy, right? And how he had a family at the end. I didn't see that coming. So there's definitely like, it's almost a recurring theme that at the end of the episode, everything goes the way you would expect it to. And then all of a sudden there's like a weird twist. So anyway, it's just something that I've observed as we talked about these more, that there's this consistent spin at the end that is unexpected.
Probably because it's episodic, it gives them a lot more freedom, right? You can twist these characters we're never going to see again. We're never going to do anything with them. You can kill them if you want. You can suddenly say they're married and send them off with their kids. There's you can't do that with Mugen. You can't suddenly have Mugen die, and you can't suddenly have Mugen have a family. But because everyone else is episodic, only there for a short time, you get a lot more freedom what you can do with the story.
That's true. And you don't have to commit to like a Naruto style thing or something else where, even if it is episodic, where you're going to bring those, because I know that like in Sailor Moon and stuff, they did bring characters back. Like they would add them and have development happening off screen with those characters. But with one season, even with 20 something episodes, they don't have to commit to do even that. You're right. One and done.
The next episode, so it has a samurai killer, a guy named Shoryu, who Mugen ends up
trained by the airbenders.
They were Shaolin monks. Come on, that's not fair.
Airbenders.
That's not fair at all. Because they borrow the same visual style.
How dare you?
And attack, like, oh, he's attacking with his ki. It's like, it looks like airbending.
Okay,
it's a gust of wind.
That's fair.
He shot a gust of wind at me.
So there's the samurai killer. They're staying at a temple where they have to work so they get food and shelter from the temple. But Mugen finds out about this bounty for the samurai killer. He's like, that sounds more fun. I'm gonna go do that. Ends up tracking him down, and they have a brief fight. He actually talks with him for a little bit, and then they have a brief fight. And Mugen's hands get ripped open from the fight. So this guy like vibrates your sword so bad it'll rip your hands open.
Yeah, he airbends you.
Yeah. But the cops intervene, so the killer's like, "Hey, meet me back here at the full moon, and we'll do this again." So Mugen, they talks with the priest, and the priest is like, "Actually, he was my student, but he ended up landing on the continent and was trained in a new martial arts over there."
With the
Airbending.
Krillin gang?
Right?
No, come on. We've already established.
I mean, let's be honest. They were all bald with like 6 dots on their forehead.
Yeah.
Just saying.
It's Krillin's family he left behind.
Guys, they're Shaolin monks. That's what they look like.
Shaolin Krillins.
It's not this anime's fault that everyone else has already borrowed that visual. Wow. Amateurs. Look, Mugen
Going
trains.
Super Mugen.
Mugen trains for a month. He's able to copy the technique because that's what Mugen does, right? He's super adaptable. He doesn't have a fighting style of his own. But
I think this is one of my more favorite moments as well, because this is the first time we see Mugen put effort into nearly anything. Because this is the first time someone's pushed him to be better than he was. Because he's always looking for the toughest guy. He's always looking for a fight. And he always is able to dispatch everyone that he can at a moment's notice. And he hasn't really had a chance to get into it with Gene. But this guy really rattled him. And so, yeah, and this is the thing, like this training montage that he's going through, we didn't see it before. We don't see it again. And it's of his own volition. He didn't get, someone didn't say, "Hey, you need to train." This is pushing him to be a better fighter.
Gonna need a montage. Montage. Even Rocky had a montage.
Montage!
And I love that even though he's so driven, we still get a scene of Mugen staring at the waterfall going, "No, that's dumb."
Yeah. He wins the fight. But
well, before there another really good moment that I really liked. Both Jin and Fu know he's going to go hunt for this guy because he's like, "Hey, I'm gonna go. I'm leaving. I'll be back." And they both want him to come back alive, and they know how dangerous this guy is. So, in their own silly way, Fu reminds him of his promise to find the samurai that smells of sunflowers, and Jin goes, "Remember, I'm the one to slay you." And he's like, "What are you, my wife?"
Yes.
I love that he responded in a way that he knows it's these terms of endearment. It's not just them bugging him, and that basically he knows it's their way of encouraging him.
Mugen has it's in the next episode, which we could probably jump to, but where he kind of returns that when Jin's running away with the woman and he's being attacked, and then Mugen and Fu run in, and Mugen runs in and goes, I woke up for this, but like it's also saying I got your back in the weirdest way, Mugen way possible. But I felt the same thing where it's almost this. There has a camaraderie has formed in this group, even though it's very weird, very dysfunctional. They would never admit it. But yeah, in that next episode, they're all trying to work odd jobs to get money. Fu is working as a waitress again. Mugen is training beetles for battle, which was great. I'm gonna be honest. Ties a rock to a beetle. He's like, "Train! I trained last episode. You train now."
You're not gonna get any food if you don't train.
Yeah.
And I do love how quickly he wins over Fu to this, because she's just immediately like, "This is dumb. What are you doing?" And then he wins. She's like, "Let's get more."
But this is Gene's story, which that he is working for a food preparation stand that serves.
Yeah, they told him that there would be blade work, and so he shows up to cook eel, apparently.
But on his way there, he runs into a woman standing on a bridge, and he's like, "Hey, don't commit suicide here. The water's not deep enough." Which is terrible
really bad.
in context, but a very Gene thing to say, right? And she's like, "Oh,
you
I'm
might
not."
want to find a different river.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's like, "Oh, I'm not. That's weird that you would think that." And so he goes to the stand, and the stand guy's like, "Hey, it's raining. There's not gonna be any business, so just stand here and watch the stand." And then the woman shows up, and she's like, "Hey, I would like an eel," and he doesn't know what he's doing. So she shows him how to catch the eel, how to cook it, how to prepare it, and then customers start showing up when they smell the food, and the two of them end up working the stand all night. And he ends up finally cooking her an eel and burning the heck out of it and ruining the food. And then she leaves, and she's like, "Hey, this was a really good memory I'll have." He's like, "What do you mean by that?" She's like, "Tomorrow I start working at a brothel because my husband had debts." So the next day, he goes and visits her, brings her the umbrella she had used, brings it back to her. She's like, "Well, I never get to go outside anymore, so you can just keep it." And then he comes back the next day. She's like, "Okay, you got to quit visiting me because I have a job now." And actually, the guards beat him up, and he lets them. I mean, clearly, Gene could take out any one of these guys anytime he wants. He lets them beat up. This is Gene in love, if it's not coming through with my description. And when he finds out Mugen went big, he's like, "I need money for a woman." And I think it's really interesting that Mugen said yes.
Very
Mugen says-
weird.
Yeah, I love that Mugen's like, "All right, I was kind of wondering, so here's some money."
So yeah, he starts using money to buy time with this woman, mostly just to talk to her, but it doesn't make it clear that they are also doing other things. And he wants to take her away. We get a scene with her husband showing up, being like, "Hey, you got money?" Like she's in a freaking brothel. He's like, "You got money?" He's got 2 teeth.
Yeah, he's like the most stereotypical evil husband I've
Right.
ever seen written into
So-
any story.
And like, so apparently he was rich, but then he gambled it all
Yeah.
away.
Right. He
And
was like
so-
a general store
Textile
manager.
merchant?
Yeah. And so then
Yeah.
he sold his wife, and it's like, and now
Yep.
he's back to go like, "Hey," because apparently they're still married.
Yeah, I'm surprised that the brothel owner isn't like, "Hey, GTFO, this is my property now." You know,
Right.
I mean, if we're gonna take this to the extent that that's being presented, I would expect him to, you know, kick the husband right out the door.
Gene and her do run away, but they are spotted almost right away, so they have to fight their way through town. That's when Mugen and Fu show up. We did get a scene of Fu. Fu is showing signs of both jealousy and worry that Gene was not going to help finish the journey. But yeah, they rush to his aid. He's not running away with her, though. He's taking her to a refugee house for women, which is across the river, sends her there, but she has to stay there for 3 years without leaving. Is the way it'll work.
So this was really cool because a lot of times in shows, maybe not in anime, but a lot of times in shows, especially if they're episodic, things are added that are just throwaway, made up, fantasy. But this was real, and I thought that was really neat. It gave me something to read about and go, "Oh, neat." I don't know if it was in this exact spot, but yeah, apparently it was very, very difficult for Japanese women of this era to divorce their husbands even if they needed to, like some terrible circumstance like this. So this was a real thing.
Yeah, that's actually really cool. Yeah, so Gene sends her away and then slays every guard that came after him, and the husband's like, "Yo, what about me, dog?" And his life is. Anyway, episode 12, recap episode. You guys both
Best
love this
recap I think I've ever seen.
Yeah, tell us about it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It kind of goes through what we just talked about as far as episodes, and a lot of anime have recap episodes, and a lot of the times when I see it's a recap episode, I just skip it, because it's content I've seen.
Well, especially when you've been binging it, like you've watched
Yeah.
all of this the past couple days. I'm good. I'm fresh.
But
Mm-hmm.
even though there's a lot of recycled content in this, they do it in such a fresh way that I wish more anime today would learn these learn this concept. And so it's done in this way where they're like, they start doubting the story of the Sunflower Samurai, and so they steal her journal and they start like reading through her diary, and so that's how we get a lot of it.
I'm interrupting. I know sorry for interrupting. There's this great theme. Mugen pulls it out, flips the first page. Huh? What is it? I can't read.
That was great.
Great comedy joke. Okay, sorry.
But no, that was great. But I love that as we go through some of these older stories, we get more context of what happened. And like one of my favorite ones is that with the priest with the samurai killer student. He's giving like each of them advice, right? And a bunch of that is sprinkled in throughout these stories of little extra pieces of context. And plus the jokes are great because like they'll hear her or they'll read her say something to the effect of, you know, they're useless or they're unreliable. They're like, hey, that stupid me, you know. So it was good.
Yeah, I loved the fact that the majority of it was just reframing the events we'd already seen from the perspective of Fu and what's important to Fu. And oftentimes that is food. And so they're like, is this just like somebody traveling and talking about how the food from this area? I mean, there's one where, okay, it's the episode where it's the Hollander guy that is pretending to be Japanese and is actually a general of trade, right? And the only thing she really says is like, well, I got to eat this, and I got to eat this, and I got to eat this in Edo, and they were all really good, and that's about all. I don't remember anything else. Oh yeah, this guy said this, and it was like, oh, okay, this is funny because so much of the character comes through in this that it's no longer just chopped up scenes from previous episodes. So yeah, if other anime did that where they would like completely frame it to be just from the perspective of a character and make it entertaining so we get their version of it, I think it would be way more palatable because this was really good.
Yeah, I agree with everything you guys said. I was really happy. I don't have to write notes during a recap episode, so I didn't write anything down other than like a sentence or two. But I did also really enjoy. I laughed a lot at the reframing of the story, the little extra bonus scenes. Yeah, it was a very well done recap episode.
And I love when they get to the end of the journal.
Yeah, she's like, I knew you guys were reading this, you jerks. It's all a lie. I made it up.
I made it all up.
Mugen's reactions to the whole thing were my favorite though, because she'd be like, "I met this samurai guy who I thought would be the worst. She talking about me?" And then I found out I was right. Oh, I hate her. All right, the next episode, another Mugen duel episode, where the group reaches the ocean, and then a girl who's there recognizes Mugen, and then they're surrounded by pirates, and these are apparently their leader is a guy that Mugen grew up with. This girl, this guy who are brother and sister, and Mugen all grew up on an island for criminals.
And
even though they weren't criminals, they're the children of criminals.
So apparently they found this girl that used to hang out with Mugen. They found her in Fist of the North Star.
Does she look a lot like it?
Every time I looked at the way she's like animated, the way her eyes move, and it's like that is a Fist of the North Star character in this anime, and it's weird. It's weirding me out.
I wonder if it's a reference or an Easter egg.
Huh.
Yeah, I don't know, but yeah, just does not look like all the other Japanese characters. It's funny.
Huh.
Well, it's interesting because they are darker skinned characters, Mugen and both these characters, but yeah, they would still be Japanese, but it's implied that they are slightly different, right?
From a different region.
Right.
Not only different region, but like maybe an island off of.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like it's one of those really tiny islands off the end of Japan.
Japanese Australia.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
This pirate leader, he's like, "Hey, Mugen, join me for this next job." And Mugen's like, "No, I'm protecting these guys. Like, you protecting anyone? That's so dumb. And so Jin points out like the nearby village is empty, and I'm pretty sure these pirates came and killed everyone, and then the people who are left are what became the pirates. So we should stay away from them. But this boss guy confronts Mugen again. And he's like, "Hey, let's have a horse driving off a cliff competition."
Yeah, they play chicken.
Basically chicken. And it's whoever pulls back on the reins first loses. They both go off the cliff, but because Mugen grabbed higher on the cliff than the other guy, he wins. Or he loses. So he tells Jin and Fu that he's going to do the job. And then he learns that the job is robbing a government transport ship full of gold. And that Mukuro, the leader of the pirates, has a inside man on the ship. And then he goes out and he's staring at the stars, and the sister comes. She's like, "Mugen, I missed you so much. Remember when you told me all this stuff about the stars looking down at us?" And he's like, "Yeah, I don't remember any of that." She's like, "Well, will you just take me away from this?" He's like, "No, I won't."
He's just the worst.
Yeah. I'm not that kind of guy, lady.
Yeah, you got the wrong guy for the job. So yeah, he blows her off. And then the night of the robbery happens. It's raining. They don't have enough men, but because it's raining and dark, they think they have a good chance at this. And I love that the pirate leader has a gun, but he holds it sideways like a gang member, even though it's an ancient revolver. Yeah, makes it all up, sure. It ends up being a backstab, though. The pirate leader, he's going to kill all his crew and keep all the money for himself. Including Mugen. The sister knew about it, and so yeah, he goes through that. He explodes the ship. The sister had gone to Jin and Fu and asked them to get for help, but they were only able to get to the shore. They see the boat blow up, and so Mugen is dead. And so this Mukuro and his business partner, who was the guy from the ship, sail off to go hide the money. Then we get Mugen's soul flashback as he sinks to the ocean and refuses to die. He's like literally in a line of spirits, and he's like, "I don't want to do this. I'm not ready for this." So he just doesn't die.
And he magically gets his shoe back.
And sword.
Yeah. His shoe
sword.
and his
sword
sword both came off. Like the sword was in a wooden plank, and his shoe, you see it come off and float away as he's sinking. But then when he washes up on the beach, he's got his shoe and he gets his sword too. It's just, that was weird.
Have you considered Mugen's like Wolverine? He regenerates his shoes.
Yeah, they're part of him. They're biological.
They're part of his bones. They just come out.
Yeah.
So yeah, Mugen does wash on shore, and Fu ends up finding him and starting to nurse him back to health. Meanwhile, the sister gets Jean, and they go and kill Mukuro to avenge Mugen. He's like, "I was the one supposed to slay him." Slays him. Kills this guy flat out. And while the guy's dying, he's like, "We were tricked." And Jean's like, "Wait, the girl went in with the partner, and they're not there anymore. They ran away together. It was all a double cross. They were in on it the whole time."
The double cross. And also we find out that this isn't the first time Mukuro has backstabbed Mugen. In fact, it's the exact same story. And it's just like, Mugen is just dumb.
I kept
Well, I guess it explains why Mugen's standing on the front of the boat when it happens this time, and he's like, "Really? Really?"
I kept waiting for an Ocean's 11 twist where like Mugen's like, "Yeah, he's clearly going to double cross me, so I'm going to have a plan in place." But nope, Mugen was just like, "Maybe this time I can trust him."
Lightning won't strike twice.
Mugen gets up and starts crawling across the beach trying to find Mukuro, and Jin finds him, and he's like, "No, I already killed him." He's like, that was mine. He's like, "But it was all a double cross. It was actually Koza, the business partner." So Mugen goes after them, finds them, kills the business partner in a flash, and the sister is like, "Kill me," because all she wanted was out, right? She just wanted out of this life. and he doesn't. Leaves her to her fate. The end.
And we'll never see them again.
Mhm.
And we'll never talk about it again. We'll never be like, hey, Logan, did that bother you to not murder that girl?
No,
Yeah.
the one that got away.
That
She's
is
gone. Oh, go ahead.
No, I don't care.
Yeah.
We're at the end.
Uh-huh.
This is a hard one to recap because there's not really central stories. It's very similar to what happened with Space Dandy and Cowboy Bebop. There wasn't a whole lot that mattered to the main characters, the main lore plot, where I have to fill you guys in the audience so that you understand 3 episodes from now why this event is happening. Everything is very isolated, very episodic, like we said. Enjoyable to watch if that's what you're liking, and I liked it. It just not super entertaining to recap. So don't let the quick recap scare you away, though. I guess is what I really want to say is that that each episode is its own little journey. I would recommend putting some space between them, like let them sink in, let them have some time in your brain, yeah, and then go on to the next one. It was once a week on Adult Swim for me, and that was the best way to watch it, I think.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's go to final thoughts. Jason's choice, so he's going first.
Like I said at the beginning, I have some nostalgia bias, so I'm going to kind of try and put that to the side. My instinct is just like to give it a super high rating, just because it's an older classic that got me into the anime. Watching it again, it's funny, it's entertaining. It's got some really great moments. The episodic nature of it actually suits it well, I think, especially for this band of miscreants trying to make their way across ancient Japan. I had a lot of fun with it, but it's not perfect, so I'm definitely going to give it a 4.
You're definitely going to give it a 4? You're not going to maybe give it a 4?
Correct.
Okay, check it.
Decision made.
There's definitely. Jeremy, how about you?
Definitely 4.
Definitely 4.
Definitely 4.
Oh, we are old. Only old
Deep
men.
cut.
Every old guy just started doing that with us in the middle of listening to this episode. But every young person's like, what the hell are they doing?
What are they doing? They're crazy. So even with all the complaints I have, I'm still going to give it a 4 as well. I think it's objectively got a lot of really good qualities. It's funny. The comedy lands really well. I enjoy the characters. It's got some really standout episodes and moments. Like that one, I had forgotten when we started recording. I'd forgotten that one where Jin is cross-dressed and he like starts playing that thing, and the way he's looking them in the eye as he's playing it, like, go on, I dare you, say something. It's so good. It had a lot to it in that regard. So yeah, I gotta say, even with my complaints about just my own personal taste, I still think this is a 4. It's really good.
I'm going with a 4 as well. One thing I want to add in is the art style. It's so refreshing not to have just a basic anime art style that looks like every other anime. It was very unique. It doesn't even look exactly like Cowboy Bebop. It doesn't look exactly like Cowboy Space Dandy. It's somewhere in between with the amount of fluidity they let their faces and characters have. It was just really unique looking. The fights are beautiful but quick, so that you understand that they are deadly, and these are not long, drawn out, cool sword fights. These are slash, someone's dead. It was realistic in all of the fun ways, and then unrealistic by bringing in the hip hop era. Again, hip hop's not something I know a ton about historically wise, so it was fun to kind of have that thoughts about it. But I did find myself pulled more into like the jazz or the cinema from the other series. So a 4 for me, very enjoyable. The only thing I think is the episodic going at a faster pace, even across 2 weeks, diminishes it a little bit. I think is my biggest takeaway.
Mm-hmm.
All right, that is it for Samurai Champloo. Again, next episode is Serial Experiments Lain. And as of right now, guys, voting is open. Call 1-800-GIVE-US-MONEY. No, that's not how American Idol works.
Wow.
No.
Entrepreneurialism at its finest.
On our
Yes.
website, theanimebakaclub.com is our voting page, and we're happy to have you vote. Just whatever has the most is what we're gonna watch. If it's one, that's what we watch. If it's it doesn't matter. I'm gonna. Are we allowed to vote? Can I vote?
No,
All right.
we can't.
Maybe we can collectively break a tie.
I'd be okay with that.
Okay. If there's a tie, we get to break the tie. There's an anime on there I wanted to vote for. That's what I want to talk about. I guess I'll just have to, I always pick the movie. I don't get these old anime.
Okay, Troy gets to break the tie then.
No,
we'll
it's
not
fine.
collectively
No,
do it.
It's not. We'll do it collectively.
Okay.
All right. Hey, if you have thoughts on Samurai Champloo, reach out to us on our Twitter account at Baka Podcast, our website where you can go vote, theanimebakaclub.com, or wherever you found this podcast, you can leave us a comment. However, we are no longer taking suggestions for anime. You have to vote now. That's over. You missed your chance. Sorry. It's over. Go home. Let's say goodbye.
We're Samurai Champloo. Thanks for listening.
We'll see you next time.
Wicca sayonara.
The pain.